You ever walk into your own home and feel like a stranger? I don't mean the awkward silence after a fight. I mean standing in the hallway with takeout in your hands, listening to your wife giggle upstairs and realizing her laugh hasn't sounded like that in years. That was me. Anniversary night. 10 years married. I even got the garlic knots. I'd clocked out early from the shop, changed out of my grease-stained coveralls, and picked up her favorite shrimp scampi from that place she used to call our little spot. I had this dumb idea in my head about surprising her. Maybe we'd sit on the porch. Maybe we'd talk. Maybe she'd look at me the way she used to. What I didn't expect was to hear our neighbor's voice. Now, I've always been a guy who believes in second chances. Engines break, people mess up, give them a socket wrench and a shot to make it right. But there's no fixing what I saw when I walked into our bedroom. I won't describe it. I don't need to. You already know. She looked at me like I was the one who forgot to knock. He didn't even look up. Just grabbed the sheet and turned away like I was a cable guy who showed up during the movie. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just set the bag of food down on the dresser, nodded once, and walked out. The garlic knots were still warm. I spent that night on Mike's couch, old friend, loyal guy, smells vaguely like diesel and bourbon. He didn't ask questions. Just handed me a beer and turned on a baseball game we didn't watch. The next morning, the first message came in. Not from Jessica. From my sister, Amber. She said, "You need to calm down and talk this through. Jessica's not a bad person. Right? And transmission fluid tastes like strawberry soda." I didn't respond. Not yet anyway. Because what I didn't know then was that the real betrayal wasn't upstairs in my house. It was sitting at my family's dinner table wearing my last name. Amber's always been dramatic. She once called me crying because a squirrel gave her a dirty look. So when she texted after the incident, "Yeah, let's call it the incident," I assumed she'd at least be on my side. You know, basic family loyalty. Instead, I got, "You need to be the bigger person, Matt. Things aren't always black and white." Really? Pretty sure catching your wife playing mattress bingo with the guy next door falls pretty squarely in the black category. I didn't answer. Thought maybe she was just in shock. Turns out she wasn't confused, she was already in Jessica's passenger seat, heading to the mall. I found out a few days later from Mike. He works part-time security at the mall, keeps him busy, keeps him near the pretzel stand. He saw them together, Amber and Jessica, arms full of bags, laughing like this was some midweek spa getaway instead of the aftermath of a nuclear betrayal. Jessica bought Amber a new phone. Brand new. Still had the peel-off sticker on the screen. You know what I got from Amber that week? A forwarded message from my parents asking if I was planning to come around for Sunday dinner or keep being dramatic. Yeah, dramatic. Let's recap. My wife cheated, my sister took her shopping, and my parents handed out guilt like it was Thanksgiving pie. I'd supported Amber through everything, covered her rent, fixed her junker car more times than I can count, even picked up Christmas gifts for her kids when her ex disappeared. I didn't do it for credit. I did it because she's my sister. And she sold that for a shopping spree and the promise of being introduced to someone well off. I guess loyalty's got a price tag now. Meanwhile, I was sleeping on a couch with springs that had stronger opinions than most talk show hosts, eating ramen and trying to figure out how my entire life went sideways in under 72 hours. I didn't respond to Amber. Not yet. I wanted to see just how far she'd fall. Turns out we hadn't even hit rock bottom. It's funny. When things are good, everyone's got a reason to love you. You're helpful. You're dependable. You're such a good brother, such a supportive husband, so selfless. But when you've got nothing left to give, no couch to crash on, no check to write, watch how fast the room clears. I spent the first week after the split working 14-hour days at Rick's shop. Volunteered for the ugliest jobs, transmission rebuilds, rusted-out brake lines, anything greasy enough to shut my brain up for a while. Rick didn't say much. That's why I respected him. He didn't give me a hug or a pep talk. He just handed me an extra set of keys and said, "You open now. I'm sleeping in." The first real hit came when I tried to get my stuff. I texted Jessica, civil, professional, no sarcasm, miracle, I know. Need to come by and grab the rest of my tools. We'll be quick. She waited 6 hours and replied, "I'd prefer if you didn't. It's confusing for me emotionally." Emotionally? You weren't too emotionally confused when the neighbor's shirt was on my doorknob. I showed up anyway. She didn't answer the door. But you know who did? Amber. She stepped out like a guard dog, arms folded, voice calm. Too calm. "Jessica says you're not in the right headspace to be around her right now." Headspace? This is the same woman who once broke down crying because her blender died during a smoothie cleanse. But suddenly, she's Dr. Phil. I looked past her and saw the boxes. My boxes. Sitting in the hallway taped up like donations. You gonna help me carry these or just stand there pretending you have principles? I asked. She blinked. You're really bitter about all this. I didn't answer. I picked up the heaviest box and walked back to the truck. Loaded it. Came back for another. She didn't move. Third trip, she finally spoke. You should talk to Mom and Dad. They're worried about you. Oh, I bet. Worried I might actually stop playing my part. The fixer. The helper. The emotional support jack for a family that only calls when their tire blows. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't slam the door. I just left. That night, I sat in Mike's garage, a half-warm beer in my hand, and finally let the silence settle in. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I wasn't sad. I was clear. You ever get invited to a family dinner and know, in your gut, you're not there to eat? My mom called it a check-in. Said they were worried about how isolated I'd been. Which was rich considering they'd both gone radio silent since Jessica's betrayal unless you count the group text about Grandma's birthday party. I didn't. I showed up anyway. I was raised better than to ignore my mother. But I brought back up. Mike dropped me off with that look he gives before a bad poker hand. Said, text me if they bring out the emotional blackmail. I'll circle the block. They were all there. Mom, Dad, Amber, and Jessica. Yep. She was sitting at the table like nothing ever happened. Like she still belonged. Like I was the unexpected guest. Matthew, my mom said, the way someone says be polite to the mailman. I nodded. Sat down. No hug. No welcome. Just awkward silence and mashed potatoes. The conversation started light, weather, church, some neighbor's new lawnmower, then took a nosedive straight into concern. We just want what's best for everyone, my dad said, which is always code for do what makes us comfortable. Amber jumped in next. You've been really cold lately, Matt. Jessica's hurting too. I choked on my water. Jessica was hurting, right? And snakes feel bad after they bite you. Then came the pitch. She made a mistake, Mom said softly. But she's still part of this family. That's when I realized I wasn't there to be supported. I was there to be corrected. To be reminded of my role. The dutiful son. The tolerant brother. The forgiving husband. I looked around the table and saw it clear as day. They didn't want reconciliation. They wanted quiet compliance. They wanted their lives back to normal. And normal meant me shutting up and playing along while everyone else pretended Jessica didn't light a match and walk away from the wreckage. I stood up, calm as ever. Thanks for dinner, I said. But next time you want to stage an intervention, maybe don't invite the arsonist. Jessica flinched. Amber scowled. My mom gasped like I'd thrown a chair. I walked out without dessert. Mike was waiting across the street, engine running like he knew. Let me guess, he said. They told you to forgive and forget. Just forget, I muttered. Forgiveness never came up. I never really thought of myself as a bounce-back guy. I was the steady one. Grew up fixing other people's messes, Amber's late bills, Mom's broken microwave, Jessica's car trouble, and her moods. I didn't panic, didn't flinch, didn't complain. I just showed up and got it done. So when everything came crashing down, the marriage, the family ties, even my living situation, I did the only thing I knew how to do. I worked. Rick, the shop owner, started giving me open-close shifts. Said he liked having someone around who didn't whine about the grind. I didn't tell him I was living in a room behind Mike's garage and eating canned chili 5 nights a week. I just clocked in and kept my hands busy. Something happens when you spend 14 hours a day fixing broken things. Your mind starts to follow. You stop replaying old conversations and start thinking in torque specs and socket sizes. I wasn't healing. I was rebuilding one brake job at a time. But I wasn't stupid. I knew hard work alone wasn't going to save me. So I signed up for an online accounting course. That's right, Matt the Grease Monkey started learning spreadsheets. Not because I had some dream of being an accountant. Because I'd been broke, blindsided, and booted out of my own house. And I never wanted to be that powerless again. I learned QuickBooks by flashlight, ran payroll simulations between engine flushes, and started doing side jobs on the weekends, oil changes, tire rotations, whatever came in through word of mouth. Rick noticed. Didn't think you were the entrepreneurial type, he said one Friday as I wrapped up a late-night alternator job. Didn't think I'd get divorced by a woman who called me her rock either, I replied. He didn't laugh. Rick doesn't laugh much. But he nodded. 2 weeks later, he handed me a ring of keys. You open and close this place. You run the crew when I'm out. You want more? Start thinking about what ownership would look like. That was the moment the lights came back on in my life. Dim at first, but real. Meanwhile, I didn't hear from Jessica. Not directly. But Amber kept texting me articles about moving on and healing through forgiveness. I didn't respond. Because I wasn't moving on. I was moving up. A year later, I stood in the driveway of my own house. Not a rental. Not some hand-me-down apartment over a nail salon. Mine. One story, decent yard, garage that didn't leak. Nothing flashy, but everything earned. I signed the papers with grease still under my fingernails and a shop apron in the truck. And I swear, when the realtor handed me the keys, I didn't feel proud, I felt quiet. Like I'd finally stopped gasping for air. Rick followed through. He started easing out, letting me run the place more and more. Said I had a better eye for numbers than he ever did. Didn't hurt that I'd practically memorized every VIN in the county by then. Clients started asking for me by name. One guy drove in from 2 towns over because his cousin said I was the only one who didn't talk down to him. I didn't talk down to anyone. I knew what it felt like to be dismissed by a wife, by a sister, by a family who thought loyalty only counted when it served them. Mike celebrated the house with a 6-pack and a busted lawn chair. We sat in the front yard watching the sun go down behind a crooked mailbox. "You're getting soft, man," he said. "This place even got curtains." "I'll take that as a compliment," I said. Then came the message. "Amber again. Hey, any chance I could come by and talk? The girls have been asking about you." "Right? The same girls I bought Christmas presents for back when I was living on gas station sandwiches and doing oil changes out of Mike's driveway. The same girls she used as an excuse to play Switzerland while my life imploded." I didn't reply. She followed it up with a picture, the 3 of them on a park bench, smiling. Caption, "We miss you." I stared at that photo longer than I should have. Because despite everything, I did miss them. But missing someone doesn't mean you hand them a match and say, "Here, try again." That night, I got a call from my mom. First one in months. "Your sister's been going through a hard time," she said. So had I. But nobody brought me a casserole. She lost her job. Jessica stopped talking to her. She's been looking for a place. I let the silence hang. I could hear it, the build-up to the favor. The unspoken assumption that I'd swoop in and play hero. "I just thought," she said, "since you have space now." There it was. The old family reflex. Problem? Call Matt. He'll fix it. He always fixes it. Except this time? I didn't say no. I said nothing. And for the first time in my life, the silence was mine. It was a Thursday night, cold, quiet, nothing special. I was under the hood of a '99 Civic in my garage, halfway through a valve job and listening to some old classic rock that made the work go faster. Then the doorbell rang. Now, I don't get visitors. Mike texts before he shows up. Rick honks from the street. Amber hadn't dared drop by. So when I opened the door and saw her standing there in a coat that used to hang in my closet, it felt like a joke. Jessica. Not a text. Not a heads up. Just her on my porch, hands buried in her sleeves, eyes doing that thing she used to do, looking like the victim in a movie she wrote herself. "Hi," she said, like this was some awkward reunion between high school sweethearts. I didn't move. Just leaned on the frame and waited. I was driving by," she said. "Thought I'd say hello." She wasn't just driving by. My house wasn't on the way to anywhere. She typed the address, hit navigate, and stood there rehearsing this speech the whole ride over. "I've been thinking about you," she went on. "About us." That word, us, hit different when it came from someone who erased your name like a typo. She started talking fast then. Said the thing with the neighbor was a mistake. Said she'd been in a dark place. Said the people around her, meaning Amber, had fed her lies. Like I was some myth that needed correcting. I let her talk. She asked to come in. Said she missed the way I made coffee. That she couldn't sleep lately. That she kept remembering the life we built. Funny. I remembered that life too. I remembered the day I built her a deck with my bare hands because she said she wanted a space to breathe. I remembered holding her when her dog died. I remembered standing in a department store helping her pick out curtains while she called me her anchor. And I remembered the day I saw that same bed we'd picked out, with the gray headboard and the soft sheets, being used like a hotel room by a man who mows his lawn in sandals. "No," I said finally. She blinked. "No, no, you can't come in. And we don't make coffee anymore. You gave that up when you gave up me." She just stood there. "You made your choices," I added. "And now I've made mine." The porch light buzzed overhead. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not sad. Not even angry. Just surprised. Like she still believed I'd always be the man she could come back to. She turned and walked away without another word. I closed the door, locked it, then made myself a coffee. Strong, black, 1 cup, because I don't brew for ghosts. 3 days after Jessica's little porch performance, I thought the circus had packed up and moved on. Then I got home from the shop and found Amber's car parked in my driveway. That alone would have been enough to make me turn around and pretend I forgot milk. But it wasn't just Amber. Her kids were with her, both of them. One holding a teddy bear, the other holding a grocery bag like they were here for a weekend stay. And there she was, standing next to my porch like a single mom in a heartwarming TV drama. Except this wasn't TV. This was my life. "Hey, Matt," she said, like this was casual. We just needed a place to catch our breath. Catch our breath. Like betrayal was a cardio workout. I thought maybe we could talk. Inside. I didn't say anything. She took that as a yes. The kids went straight to the living room like they'd already memorized the floor plan. Amber sat at the table like it was still hers, like she hadn't ghosted me in the worst year of my life, then picked up where Jessica left off. Not just siding with the enemy, but helping her redecorate. "I lost my job," she said finally. "Things got complicated with Jessica. That guy she introduced me to? Yeah. Not exactly a gentleman." Translation: the rich connection was a scammer with a gym membership and a felony. She sighed. "I was wrong, Matt. I should have supported you. I let her manipulate me. I didn't say anything." Then she tried the oldest play in the book. "The kids. They miss you. You were always Uncle Matt. You were there when their dad bailed. You were their constant." That hit. I won't lie. I loved those kids. Still do. But they weren't there because they missed me. They were there because she knew I couldn't say no to their faces. Amber saw the hesitation. She leaned in. "I just need a week, just to figure things out." I stood up. "You figured things out a year ago. You figured I was the one who would always say yes. Who would keep giving even after you gave me nothing." Her face tightened. "I said I was sorry." "You said it now," I replied. "But when I was sleeping in a garage and your best friend was playing house with my wife, you were buying throw pillows with her at Target." She didn't move. I walked over to the door and held it open. The kids looked confused. I gave them a soft smile, not angry, not mean, just final. "You'll find another couch," I told Amber. "But you won't find another me." She left without another word. And that night, for the first time in months, I slept like a man who finally knew where his boundaries were. They came on a Sunday. Of course they did. Same day I used to mow their lawn, fix their gutters, bring Amber's kids to visit so she could get a break. This time, no heads up. Just a knock on my door and 2 silhouettes I recognized through the blinds before they even spoke. Mom clutched her purse like it was armor. Dad had that classic stance. Arms folded, chin up, ready for confrontation but pretending it was a chat. I opened the door, said nothing. "We'd like to come in," Mom said. "Not today," I replied. She frowned, like I just told her I burned the family Bible. "Matthew," she said, "and when they use your full name, you know they're loading the guilt cannon. This has gone on long enough." I leaned against the frame. "Define this." Dad cleared his throat. "The coldness, the refusal to talk to your sister, to Jessica. We're a family, son." I raised an eyebrow. Interesting word choice. Family. "Jessica made a mistake," Mom continued. "But she came from a place of pain. You shut her out. You shut all of us out." That's when I realized they hadn't come to check on me. They'd come to fix me, to realign me with the family narrative. The one where Matt always makes peace, always keeps the glue holding, always sacrifices so the others can keep playing house with matches in their hands. "You've always been the steady one," Dad added, like it was a compliment. "You don't want to break bonds you can't unbreak, right? Because the bonds were sacred when I was signing loan papers and babysitting. Not so sacred when I was sleeping in a garage and Amber was brunching with my ex." I stayed quiet. Mom tried a softer approach. "You've come so far, sweetheart. The business, the house. It's all so beautiful. Why carry all this resentment?" I smiled. "Just a little. You know what's funny? None of this happened because you all supported me. It happened after you all left. That hit. Even Dad looked away. I used to think loyalty meant sticking around no matter what, I added. Turns out, it just made me a doormat with a toolbox. Mom blinked, like she hadn't expected a response that wasn't wrapped in apology. We were trying to do what's best, she started. No, I said. You were doing what was easiest. And now that I'm not cleaning up everyone's mess, you're uncomfortable. I stepped back, gently pulled the door halfway closed. I love you. I really do. But if you're here to put me back in the cage you built, save the trip next time. They didn't say another word, just turned and walked down the porch steps in silence. The door clicked shut behind them like the final line in a chapter one didn't even want to write, but needed to. The world was dead quiet when she showed up again. I'd just gotten to sleep after a 14-hour Saturday at the shop. I was finally comfortable. House dark, dogs snoring at my feet, fridge humming like a lullaby. Then came the knock. Not the polite kind, the urgent kind. I checked the window first because old habits die hard. And there she was, Jessica, again. Only this time she wasn't polished. No expensive coat. No calm rehearsed smile. Just a hoodie, worn jeans, and eyes that had clearly forgotten how to sleep. I opened the door just enough to hear her. Matt, I didn't know where else to go. There it was. The line. I could have written that script myself. The no one else plea, the I'm lost tone. The last-ditch cameo after all her bridges had finally burned and I was the only one left she thought might still be standing. I just needed to see you, she said. Just for a minute. Her voice cracked, and for a second, I saw it. The version of her I used to believe in. The girl I met in college who danced in the kitchen with bare feet and sang off-key on road trips. But that girl was long gone. And in her place stood a woman who sold out 10 years of marriage for cheap thrills and backup plans that collapsed faster than her alibis. I didn't speak, so she filled the silence. It wasn't just about him, she said, meaning the neighbor. It was about feeling invisible. About needing something you didn't earn. I finished. She stopped, like that had never occurred to her. That love isn't a tab you keep running until the account's overdrawn. I thought I could fix things, she said. I really did. She looked past me. At the hall, the lamp, the life I'd rebuilt. The one she wasn't part of. Amber said you wouldn't let her in either. True, I said. Why? I looked her dead in the eye. Because I finally figured out the difference between forgiving someone and giving them access. She looked down. For once, no comeback. No blame shift. Just the slow, stunned realization that the door she'd assumed would always be cracked open was shut. I stepped back not to invite her in, but to close the door. And before I did, I said it. Not for her. For me. You lost me, Jess. On the night, I still brought you garlic knots, and you gave me a wake-up call instead. The porch light flickered as I closed the door. And on the other side, the silence wasn't mine to carry anymore. Things got quiet after that night. Not in the peaceful cup of coffee on the porch kind of way. More like the quiet you get right before a storm decides it's not done with you yet. Jessica disappeared. No texts. No surprise visits. No dramatic speeches on my doorstep. Which would have been nice if I didn't know her better. She wasn't the type to retreat. She was the type to regroup. Amber too. They both had that talent. Turning consequences into sob stories, rewriting history into misunderstandings. And sure enough, it started showing up in whispers. Mike heard it first from his cousin, who heard it from some PDA group chat. Jessica was struggling, apparently, said I'd refused to co-parent, which was interesting, considering we didn't have kids. Not human ones, anyway. Just the house, the debt, and a dog she forgot existed until she realized people liked that kind of detail. Amber, meanwhile, started circling the family again like nothing had happened, hosting little get-togethers at my parents' place, posting throwback photos with captions like "Family always finds a way." Except this time it didn't, because people remembered. Turns out when you burn the guy who built the deck, tuned your car, paid your rent, and stayed silent through every insult, people notice when he finally walks away. I wasn't being petty. I was being done. I'd stopped replying to messages that came wrapped in manipulation. Stopped defending myself in conversations I didn't start. I wasn't mad. I was just out of fuel. That was the new me. The version that didn't bend to keep others comfortable. One night, Rick and I sat on the tailgate after closing shop. Stars out, air cool, that rare kind of quiet that didn't carry tension. He passed me a beer and asked, "You ever miss her?" I didn't hesitate. "No. I miss who I thought she was." He nodded. That's the part that stings the most. And he was right. It wasn't the betrayal that haunted me. It was how long I ignored the signs, how often I made excuses for things that didn't make sense just because I didn't want to believe someone I loved could be so calculating. But now I had peace. Not the silence kind. Not the fake smile at dinner kind. The earned kind. The kind you get when you stop waiting for people to respect you and start respecting yourself first. It happened on a Sunday. Because of course it did. That's when they always come, when you're relaxed, when your defenses are down, when you've just started to believe the peace might stick. I was in the garage, working on an old Harley a friend brought in as a side project. Sun was out, sleeves rolled up, music playing low. One of those rare afternoons where the world lets you breathe. Then I saw them. My parents. Both of them pulling into the driveway like they still had keys to my life. They got out slow. Coordinated. Serious faces. Mom held a folder. Dad had that hands in pockets posture he uses when he's about to say something rehearsed. I didn't move. Mom came in first, smile tight. "Matthew, we need to talk." They didn't wait for me to invite them in. Just walked through the garage like it was still 1997 and I was 15, getting lectured for denting the truck. Dad looked around. "You've done well for yourself." "That a compliment?" I asked. "An observation," he said. Then Mom got to the point she always does. "Amber told us what happened. With the kids. With Jessica." I stayed silent. No point interrupting a play when the actors are just warming up. "We understand you're hurt," she said, "but you've cut people off, Matthew. People who love you." Funny word, love, the way they used it like a bargaining chip. Like history and holidays and shared blood meant I owed them something. "She's your sister," Mom continued. "She made a mistake. So did I, letting her stay close for so long." "She was manipulated," Mom added. "Jessica's very convincing." "Not that convincing," I said. "She had help." That hit. Dad cleared his throat. "Your sister's lost everything. The kids are struggling. They could use your support." Now we were there, the ask. It's never a visit. It's never an apology. It's always a mission. And the mission is always get Matt to absorb the damage again. I took a breath, then looked at both of them. "You ever stop to think maybe I lost something too?" They blinked. "I lost a marriage, a home, a decade. I lost respect for people I spent my life trying to protect. And I lost the illusion that family means loyalty." They didn't speak. Just stood there, faces stiff like statues of people who used to know me. "I gave everything," I added. "And the one time I needed you, really needed you, you sat at the table with the person who blew my life up." Dad looked away. Mom reached out like she wanted to touch my shoulder. I stepped back. "I'm not angry anymore," I said. "But I'm not yours anymore either. Not in the way you remember." They didn't argue. They just left. And this time, they didn't say goodbye. Just silence. But not the heavy kind, the final kind. After that day, everything changed. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just different. Like the air in the house felt cleaner. Like my phone got quieter, fewer guilt texts, fewer, "Hey," just checking in calls that weren't really about checking in. The silence wasn't just freedom. It was mine. Rick handed me the final papers that week. I was now co-owner of the shop, 49% to his 51%, with a signed option to buy him out in full within 2 years. He smiled like a man who knew what it cost me to get there. "Not just the work, but the letting go. You're not the same guy who walked in here last year," he said. "Good," I replied. He was tired. And he was. That version of me, the one who bent over backwards to keep everyone happy, who paid the emotional bills no one else even opened, he died the day my family looked me in the eye and chose my wife's comfort over my pain. I didn't hate them, but I didn't owe them a seat at my table anymore. I started small, new locks on the house. Cleaned out the closet where I'd kept some of Amber's boxes just in case. Donated everything. Even the stuff I swore I'd keep for the kids someday. Because someday already came and went. Mike helped me finish repainting the garage. We grilled burgers, drank cold beer, and didn't talk about the past once. That was the new life. The one without apology tours. The one where loyalty meant something, but not to people who only understood it when they were cashing in on it. I thought maybe I'd feel bitter. I didn't. I felt clear. One afternoon I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. From Jessica. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Closure isn't a conversation. It's a decision. And I'd already made mine. A month passed. Then another. No new texts. No calls. No awkward drive-bys. No one popping up in my driveway pretending to be in the area. The circus had finally folded. And I realized something strange. Peace isn't loud. It's not a victory speech or a mic drop. It's not a confrontation in the rain or someone sobbing at your doorstep begging for one more chance. Peace is quiet mornings and coffee that stays hot. It's turning on music in the garage and realizing no one's going to walk in and ruin it. It's finishing a job, locking the shop, and not checking your phone on the way home because you're not waiting for the next emotional grenade to land. It's knowing that your boundaries were tested and this time they held. I still get updates. Can't stop them. People talk. Amber moved in with some friend of a friend. She's job hopping, scraping by. Jessica's living with her sister in another town. The neighbor? Moved out. Probably on to the next driveway over. None of it made me feel better. None of it made me feel worse. It just didn't matter anymore. One Saturday, Mike and I took a drive out to the hills where the roads are empty and the air smells like possibility. We didn't say much. Just rolled the windows down and let the miles do the talking. You ever think about starting over? He asked. I smiled. I already did. And I meant it. Not the dramatic kind of starting over. Not shaving your head, deleting your social media, moving to Costa Rica. The quiet kind. Where you just stop letting the people who hurt you rent space in your head. Where you live your life like they're not coming back because they're not. Because they already had their shot. And they blew it. It was almost poetic. Same porch. Same door. Same knock. Sunday morning early. Coffee in hand, garage door open, sun rising slow. I'd been rebuilding an old Chevy block, my kind of therapy. Hands dirty, mind clean. Then came the knock. I didn't even have to check. I knew. Both of them this time. My parents. Last visit, they brought guilt. This time, they brought company. Amber. She stood half a step behind them like a kid in trouble waiting to see if the principal was feeling merciful. No kids with her. No suitcase. Just eyes full of hope, the kind people only show when they've run out of backup plans. Matthew, my dad said. Mom offered a tight smile. We thought maybe it's time. I let them talk. Something about family. About healing. About moving on. Amber chimed in with, I didn't know what I was doing and I never meant to choose sides. But she did. And now she wanted back in, not because she saw the damage, but because she finally felt the distance. I just want things to go back to the way they were, she said. That's when I spoke. They already did. She blinked. You're out there. I'm in here. We're all where we belong now. Dad shifted. Son, don't throw away your family over a mistake. I didn't, I said. You did. The day you sat at the dinner table with her and acted like I was the problem. Mom looked down. I kept my voice calm. Measured. Firm. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not punishing anyone. I just finally got tired of being the only one paying for everyone else's choices. Amber stepped forward. So that's it? You're just done. I nodded. I'm done being available to people who weren't there when I broke. Silence. No shouting. No tears. Just the truth sitting between us like a drawn line. I stepped back inside. Closed the door. No slam. No drama. Just the sound of a man choosing peace. Not because it was easy. Because it was earned.